Good morning, grade 8 students. In this video, we're going to talk about digestion part 2. In the last part, if you remember, we talked about the different types of food. We said the different types of the organic. We said we have carbohydrates, we have proteins, and we have lipids. Also, we talk about the different forms of these carbohydrates. We said that we have complex, intermediate, and simplest. For carbohydrates, we said that we have polysaccharides as the complex form. Intermediate form is said to be the disaccharide. It's composed of two simple sugars bonded together. And the simplest form is called mono. Mono means one sugar. And the proteins, we have also complex form, intermediate form, and simplest form. The complex form of proteins is also called proteins, which are a complex chain or long chain of more than 52 amino acids. Intermediate form is called a polypeptide, or you can say peptide. It's a chain of amino acids, but it's less than 52 amino acids. Also, we have the simplest form of the proteins is the amino acids, which is only one simple unit. For the lipids, we have something special. In the lipids, there is no intermediate. We have complex and we have simplest. Complex form is the lipids or the fats, intermediate nothing, and the simplest form is called fatty acid and glycerol. So these notes, you have to know them. In addition, you have to know the disaccharides, maltose, glucose, and the glucose, and the other sugars, what are they composed of. You have to know that carbohydrates, they are a good source of energy, and you have to know that the also the lipids, they are also a good source of energy, and the same amount of lipids and carbohydrates, those of lipid can give double the amount of energy. Let's start with the first test. Test food test. These food tests, they aim to identify the presence of a specific type of food. Let's start first with the Fehling test. Fehling test. What is the aim of the Fehling test? Fehling test is done to identify the presence of reducing sugar. So the aim of the Fehling test is to test or to identify the presence of reducing sugar. So a test for the presence of reducing sugar. So all the type of sugars they are reducing except for sucrose. This one is a non-reducing. So we aim to test the different types of sugar by which test is called the Fehling test. All the reducing sugars. All the sugars except for sucrose, which is a non-reducing one. So you have to pay attention to this. Fehling test. What is the aim of the Fehling test? It's done to identify the presence of reducing sugar. This is the first test. This is the aim or the goal or the purpose of this test. Why do we do it? Procedure. What do? We put a piece of food in a test tube. You ask me, do you want to study them by heart, word by word? No. But you have to know that we bring a piece of food, put it inside a test tube, then we add equal amounts. This is the first step. Step number two, we add equal amounts of Fehling A solution and Fehling B solution to the test tube. So we add Fehling A and Fehling B. So these two solutions, Fehling A and Fehling B, will be added to the food. So here we have the food, a piece of food to be tested inside a test tube. This is the test tube, you know it for sure. And then we add equal amounts of Fehling A solution and Fehling B solution. The obtained will be color that is special. But before we know the color or the result at the end, you have to know that Fehling solution has blue color. Then, step number three, we have to heat gently the test tube over a Bunsen burner. This is the Bunsen burner, which is the source of heat. It's called the Bunsen burner. So I will repeat. Bring a piece of food, put it inside the test tube. Second step, add equal drops of Fehling A and Fehling B solution, and the solution will have a blue color. We have to heat the test tube over the Bunsen burner using the Bunsen burner, which is the source of heat, and you know it in chemistry for sure. Obtain result. If it's a positive, what the meaning of a positive? Positive result meaning that we have reducing sugar. So whenever we have a brick grad precipitate, so brick grad precipitate, this one is the brick grad precipitate. So brick grad precipitate, this indicates the presence of reducing sugar, and this is the positive result. Whereas the negative result, there is no change in the color. The color remains blue. So there is no reducing sugar. This indicates the absence of reducing sugar. For example, if I told you interpret the experiment, what do you have to say? You have to say after adding filling A and filling B to the food in the test tube, we have a brick red precipitate. What does this indicate? This indicates the presence of reducing sugar. This is the case whenever I ask you interpret the experiment. So you have to say after adding filling A and filling B to the food in a test tube, a brick red precipitate appears yellow. So this indicates the presence of reducing sugar. And negative result, there is no change yellow in the color. So the color remains blue. This indicates the absence of reducing sugar. There is no reducing sugar. So what do you think, yellow? What does the brick red precipitate means? Yes, you can speak. What does the brick red precipitate indicate? Whenever we have with failing solution or failing test, we have brick red precipitate. What does this indicate, Yarawa? Yes, you can speak right now, Yarawa. Yes, Ruwa. Okay, maybe Ruwa has a problem with connection, I think. So let's move now to the next. So first of all, what is the positive result? Whenever we have brick red precipitate, this means that we have reducing sugar. So whenever we have a brick red precipitate with failing fast, this indicates the presence of reducing sugar. This is the case in this experiment. So first step, we heated the test tube and we we watch the results or we observe the results. Whenever we have blue color, this is a negative, no reducing sugar. Whenever we have brick red precipitate as figure D, so we have reducing sugar. So first task is the failing test. It aims to identify or to test the presence of reducing sugar. Second test, iodine test. Iodine test, as you know from grade 7 and grade 6, it aims to test the presence of starch in food. Mostly you can use it in the green plants in the case of photosynthesis. Remember this? So this iodine test, it's done to test the presence of starch. So iodine test, from now on, you have to keep it in your mind. Iodine test is for what? It's for starch. So it aims for the presence of the starch. It aims to test the presence of the starch. So let's continue. What is the procedure? From now on, you have to know that the procedure is the steps of the test. Okay, what are the steps? We call it the word procedure. So procedure, first step, put a piece of food to be tested in a small dish. So put it in a small dish, bring a small dish and put the food to be tested in this dish. Then step number 2 is very easy. Add few drops of iodine solution. This iodine solution has brown orange color. So it has brown to orange color. Okay? And you will wait for the results. For example, you can put a piece of bread, let's say, or banana, let's say, or potato. Put it in a petri dish or put it in a small dish. This is, for example, the food, and add iodine solution for it. Whenever you add iodine solution, you will wait for the result. If it's a positive result always means that we have this food. It will show dark blue color, indicating the presence of starch. So whenever we do The iodine solution or the iodine test, it aims to test the presence of the starch. So always and always and always, you have to know it from now on that this is done to aim for the presence of starch in food. So whenever we did this test, iodine test, whenever it gives a positive result, meaning that we have starch. What is the positive result? It's a dark blue color. While if it's a negative result meaning that there is no starch. So this means that there is absence of starch. But what is the color? The color will remain as the color of the iodine solution. It remains as brown orange color. So the color remains as a brown orange one. Okay, so here this is the second test. So second test, if I told you interpret, what do you have to say? Analyze plus indication. So after adding a few drops of iodine solution to the food to be tested, the color becomes dark blue. What does this indicate? This indicates the presence of starch. While if it's a negative, after adding a few drops of iodine solution to the food to be tested, the color remains brown orange. This is the analysis indication. This indicates that we have no starch, or this indicates that absence of starch. So this is the second test. So I will repeat. The first test was for the Fehling test. It aims to test the presence of reducing sugar. If it's positive, it gives brick red precipitate, and if it's negative, it gives what? It remains blue in color. It gives a blue color. While iodine solution test or iodine test, it aims to test the presence of starch. If it gives a dark blue color, this is a positive result and we have starch. And if it gives brown orange and the solution remains brown orange in color, this means that there is no starch. Moving for the third test. The third test is called Biuret test. Biuret test is done to identify the presence of proteins and slash or polypeptides. Either proteins or polypeptides or even both of them. So either we have protein or polypeptide or both of them, they are present in this one. So this test is done for both proteins slash and slash or polypeptides. So you have to pay attention to this test. It's done to identify the presence of both proteins and slash or. So you have to pay attention to this. And this is slash or. So either proteins or polypeptides or even proteins and polypeptides. Yani basma. So procedure is put a piece of food in a test tube. Add equal volumes of copper sulfate and sodium hydroxide. What is copper sulfate? Copper sulfate, it's CuSO4. This is the copper sulfate. Sure, I won't ask you about the formula. And sodium hydroxide, it's NaOH. This is the sodium hydroxide. So adding equal drops or equal volume A of CuSO4 and sodium hydroxide, so the formed mixture will be a biuret solution. This biuret solution has a blue color. Okay, it has a blue color. So next, this is the first steps. So first step, what is the procedure? Put a piece of food inside the test tube, like down here. Add equal volumes or equal drops. For example, 2 drops of CuSO4 and 2 drops for NaOH. If it's 3 drops, 3 drops, and so on. So equal volumes of both NaOH, sodium hydroxide, and copper sulfate, CuSO4. Then what do we do? It's the following. The formed mixture, as you know, is called Biuret solution and not Beirut. Okay? Biuret solution. This solution has a blue color. So let's continue. These are the first steps. Okay? Continue. Moving to the results. If it's a positive result, we will have a violet color. This violet indicates the presence of proteins or polypeptides, or even proteins and or polypeptides. Okay, here I said peptides is the same as polypeptides. While negative result, negative result, there is no change in the color. The color remains blue. This indicates the absence of proteins and or peptides. So there is no proteins, no peptides. This is the negative result. So Binet test, as a conclusion, is done to identify the presence of proteins and slash or peptides. If it's a positive result, it will give a violet color. This indicates the presence of proteins and or polypeptides. While if it's a negative result, this indicates the absence of proteins and peptides. So here, the positive result, we have a purple color or we have a violet color. Yes, Ali, your question is, Ali Hassan Basma.
Ustaz,
Yes, English please.
I didn't understand the and slash or clear.
Okay, and slash or. Either we have proteins
Eh?
and polypeptides, proteins and polypeptides, okay, peptides, or we have proteins or polypeptides. Yani either we have one of them or both of them. This is the definition of and slash or. Either we have
Oh,
proteins and polypeptides together, or we have baby protein or polypeptides. Got it?
okay, okay.
Yeah, meaning that we have either both of them, proteins and polypeptides, or we have one of them, meaning or, and meaning both of them they are present. So this test is done to identify proteins and or polypeptides. We can determine exactly why, which do we have, proteins or peptides. This can be determined, Yani, in the next session. We will know which test can determine exactly if we have proteins. Remember this. So this positive result, we have a purple or a violet color. So it's a positive result. So proteins are present. While if it's a blue, this is a negative result. So proteins, they are absent. So there is no protein. Okay? So this is the third test. So till now, we have how many tests? We have three tests. So here, the table that was very hard. This is the table. First one is called the Fehling test. It's done to identify the presence of what? Of reducing sugar. So what do we do? Add equal drops of Fehling A and Fehling B. If you want, you can skip this. Say Fehling A and Fehling B. Heat the contents of the tube into the Bunsen burner. If it's a positive result, brick red precipitate appears. If it's a negative, solution remains blue. Here I did analysis and indication. So both of them together, what do they give? They give the interpret. So after adding equal drops of failing A and failing B, this is if I gave you a question to interpret. This will help you, and it's similar. You can study this and you can write it down. So after adding equal drops of failing A and failing B, or you can say simply after applying failing test, brick red precipitate appears. So this indicates the presence of reducing sugar. Wherever, if there is a negative result, so there is no brick red precipitate, so this indicates the absence of reducing sugar. Let's move to the second test, iodine test. Iodine test is done to identify the presence of starch. Steps simple. Add few drops of iodine solution. If the positive result, we have dark blue color appears. If it's a negative, no dark blue. It remains brown, orange, or yellowish in color. So analysis of the positive, after adding iodine to the food, dark blue color appears. So what does this indicate? This indicates the presence of starch. If I told you, Ya Ghadi, you have to analyze the negative result of the iodine test. Can you do this?
يس أستاذ فيك ترجع تعيد السؤال.
Can you analyze or can you make interpretation if we don't have a positive result? We have a negative result for the iodine test. So what do you say? After adding
After adding iodine test,
iodine solution to the food,
yes.
okay, if it's a negative, which color will appear?
If it's a negative, it's give us brown color
Brown
or
color. So
orange.
what does this indicate?
This indicate that the iodine solution is negative. Oh,
Okay,
there's no starch in
there is no
the.
starch. Excellent. This
Yes.
indicates the absence of starch in the food. Thank you, Ghadi. Thank you. Does this indicate the absence of starch in the food? So this is the second test. Third test was the Biuret test. Biuret test is done to identify the presence of what? Of proteins and slash or polypeptides, or even you can, instead of writing polypeptides, if you think that's hard, you can say peptides. It's the same. They give the same idea, peptides or polypeptides. Okay, so what you have to do is the following. You have to add equal drops of sodium hydroxide, NaOH, and CuSO4, copper sulfate. What is the positive? Violet color appears. And what is the negative? The color remains blue. So analysis of the positive. After adding equal drops of NaOH and CuSO4, or can simply say after applying Biuret test, violet color appears. So violet test, if you have violet color, this indicates the presence of what? Of proteins and slash or. Either we have proteins or polypeptides, or even we have both proteins and polypeptides and the food. So here I wanna move to Celine Najdi. Good morning, Celine.
Good morning, Ustaz.
If I want you to give interpretation for the negative result of the Biuret test, can you do it?
نعم.
Can you interpret the negative result for the Biuret test? Sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
After adding equal number drops of copper sulfate
And
and
sodium hydroxide.
copper, sodium hydroxide,
Yes.
the,
Okay, you can make it
there was
you
no
can make it
change in
easier,
color.
Celine. You can make it easier. You can say instead of
This
adding
means
equal
it's
drops,
negative result.
Celine, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, you can make it easier. You can say after applying Biuret test only.
Okay.
Okay, yalla do it.
There was no change in color.
Okay, there is no change in the color and the color remains blue.
Blue.
What does this indicate?
This indicates that there was absence of proteins and peptides.
And or peptides in the food.
Okay.
Okay, so here we
Okay.
did the analysis. Thank you, Celine. So here we did the analysis for the negative result. Okay, so here you have to know that whenever we have, how many tests do we have? We have 3 tests. I will give you the chance to raise your hand and to answer the first question, which is, what is the aim of the Fehling test? Who can raise the hand and give me the answer? What is the aim of the Fehling test? By raising your hands. Why do we do the Fehling test? Other than Celine, you answered right now. I want to other than Celine. I want to Alma. Alma, others. Kareem. Yes, Kareem. Good morning, Kareem.
Good morning, Ustaz.
Okay, what is the aim, Kareem, of the Fehling test? Why do we do the Fehling test?
We use the Fehling test to test the presence of reducing sugar.
Excellent, reducing sugar. Can you give me the positive result of the Fehling test? What is the positive result?
Red brick color.
Brick red precipitate. Excellent. Thank you, Kareem. Moving to Maya. Maya, what is the aim of the iodine test? Yes, Maya, you can speak, I think. Try now.
Yes, Ustaz.
Yes, Maya. What is the aim of the iodine test?
It's to identify the presence of
Right. We have three tests. فهلك
the substance.
of which substance? Star?
Stars.
Starch.
Construct.
What is the positive result? Which color?
Violet color.
No, starch. Iodine test gives dark
Dark blue color.
blue color. Violet color is for what? For the violet test. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, Adam. Adam Tairik, you're raising your hand. Okay. Adam Tairik, where is Adam? Where is Adam? Adam, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Okay, if I told you what are the steps of Fehling test, can you give me the steps of the Fehling test?
First, we put equal drops,
Of Fehling A, and
filling B.
then what do? We heat the test tube over the Bunsen burner. Okay? Okay, so thank you, Adam. So here they are the three tests. So we have three tests as a conclusion. First test is the Fehling test. Is done to identify the presence of reducing sugar. If it's positive result, it gives brick red precipitate. And if it's a negative, the solution remains blue. The second test is the iodine test. It gives dark blue color with the starch, and it's a negative result, the solution remains brown or orange in color. The Pirate test is done to identify the presence of proteins and or polypeptides. So we have to put for the test tube at equal drops of copper sulfate and sodium hydroxide. And if we have purple or violet color, this means that we have proteins and or polypeptides. If it's a negative, there is no proteins, no polypeptides, and it gives the blue color. This is the first, let's say, a first part of the food test. Next week, we will continue with the next tests. Okay? Thank you.